Okay, no, but hey, but the point is the same. Like, if it wasn't for the seasons, the human intellect wouldn't even recognize change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it's a new season, and hold on, other people come in. Hold on a second. There you go. So whatever. So you're holding by that 90, 100 logic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. So let me ask this: is it so? It's like a dry heat. Like what
So
is it
like
like?
right now, it's humid because it's like we're still in getting that last bit of spring, getting that rain and stuff. So it's like a
Mm,
humidity right now. But once we hit like the June, oh man, it's dry, humid, it's everything. In Dallas, you get it all. You know what I mean? Like, and like Houston is super humid, super humid. It's like, oh my goodness. Houston feels like I think I told you my family's from Mississippi. So Houston feels like Mississippi, and that's a whole different like sweltering heat. Like it's almost like weighing you down. In Texas, in Dallas, you kind of get a mix between like that super dry heat out in like Vegas, Arizona, but then you also get like a little humidity as well. So it's just hot. It's just hot.
Do we talk? Maybe we talked about this. I don't remember. But where's your family from in Mississippi?
From the Delta, so like Clarksdale, and then Jackson. So we kind of originate from those areas.
Because my mom's side, there was a lot of their family was in Meridian.
Oh yeah, okay. Yep.
Do you know where that is?
Yeah, I know where Meridian is.
Wow. Anyways, but yeah, so maybe we have like relation or something. Like,
They say all people like typically came from Mississippi, either went Mississippi to Chicago, Mississippi to like California, or that's how the migrations went. A lot of it's from
oh
Mississippi out.
wow.
Yeah, you got a lot
So
of people from Chicago, from Mississippi. I got family in Chicago.
interesting. Rabbi Fournier is in Chicago.
Yeah, yep, he is. Yep.
Wow, wow, interesting, interesting. Okay, so how's everybody else? You guys good? You guys are humid? Is humid out there in Houston?
Long, long. No, no, it's not real union. We woke up this morning, it was kind of cool, very
Mm.
cool. Where we're at now, we are farther east of Dallas, so deep East Texas. So um it's it's nice and sunny, but it's cool. Now our parents as I was saying, shalom Motinel, shalom
Hey, shalom, shalom.
my where we're originally from southeast Texas, like Port Arthur, Beaumont. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's near Houston, where and I know it's humid. It's always humid down there. And so it's if you think about um just mid like 70s, it's pretty much like that all year round. The winters more recently it's beginning to get colder. So, like you have orange trees growing down down in southeast Texas. You have it's very tropical.
Well, hey, I've learned more about Texas being in Israel than I did when I was in America. I just a lot of people, a lot of situations, a lot of things were revolved up. But the thing about Texas, I always saw Texas as a very like conservative place. But a lot of the people that met from Texas are very like really out of the box thinkers. Which I wouldn't expect. Maybe it's just the particular people I'm meeting. But growing up, I just always saw Texas as like a very conservative type of place, cowboy boots and hats, and not limiting it to that. And then I even traveled there a bunch of times. My dad did a lot of business in Texas, and I realized how Latino, Texas was, because some of the areas he was dealing with, like people that were like, that were Hispanic, whatever, was the whole thing. But the point is just saying that, like, I saw how Latino it was, but like since I've been in Israel, a lot of some of the most expansionary thinkers I've met here, and then even now meeting you guys in America, it's like it's been from Texas. So I don't know, it's like something interesting about it. Anyways, all right. So enough with that. So okay, so whatever we got, everyone got weather here in Jerusalem. It's it's like it was really during the summertime you get reminded that you're in the desert. Because like Jerusalem, Israel is like such a developed place. You know what I mean? Like there's some places like in Tel Aviv that remind me of places in LA. Like in terms of like the setting, the structures or whatnot. And anyways, the point is just saying that, during the summertime, it's just a dry, brutal heat sometimes. And, thank God, like I'm into learning, I'm into teaching, so I'm not like out wandering all day, you know what I mean, type of thing. But like if you're out there, I mean, put it this way, many of suits of mine have been ruined with Jerusalem heat and sweat, right? Like the suit's finished, it's out, I can't deal with it, right? So we're going into that phase, and there's not such a spring period with in Israel. Like I mean, the spring is a concept by Pesach, but there is a taste of it. It's there. But I feel like Jerusalem just goes from like winter, maybe a couple weeks of spring, and it's just desert heat from this point on. And it's just like so intense sometimes, and you're just like, oh, I can't take it. And it's just like, and the winter comes, it's like, where's the heat? So. I don't know. It's a very unique place, but the point is just saying that it's just being aware of, and we talked about it yesterday, just the spiritual significance of the time changing and the seasons changing, and just what is Hashem saying to us? What is He preparing us for? And it's like it's interesting that even though you guys are in Texas, there is differentiation, right? And I'm in Jerusalem, and there's differentiation. So it's just but we're all unique souls, right? And so we can all be experiencing the same season but in different ways because we're different souls. The non-spiritual reality says no, everyone has to agree, everyone has to see the same thing. But it's like that's not the way the world is designed. Like we're all in different parts of the world. We're all experiencing kind of like this spring-esque type time frame. But our geographics, based off of the coordinates of the cosmos, are expressing this energy differently, right? So why is that the case? Or maybe we could assume that part of the reason why is because we're all unique and different, right? Oh, so then you could conclude that the fact that I'm in this part of the world, in this particular place, at this particular time, is exactly what my soul needs, and that's why I'm there. Right, just by the different because if it wasn't that, then it should be the same, weather everywhere, right? Or even if you say there's differentiations, like it still should be more secret. It should be more synchronistic. It's you go to different cities or have complete like from here where I'm at in Jerusalem, and then if you go up to the north to like Sfad or whatever, it's a different climate, right? It's a different terrain, right? And so it's just being that awareness of the place that we're at and the uniqueness of that place and the history of that place and the effect of the equator and the astrological effects, and how they affect planet Earth and how they affect this particular geographical place on planet Earth. And it just so happens I'm in this particular geographical place. So anyway, so we just want to make those awareness points, right? We want to say, hey, I'm standing in this particular street on the corner, ready to cross the street, and I'm in this particular year, and this is the particular weather, and these are the particular political situations and economic situations, and this is the alignment of the cosmos, and this is the weather effect on this reality, and all of these things that I'm witnessing are an expression of God's light. Everything that I'm looking at is expressions of God's light. And if I look at them, with the eyes of the Torah, I will see God's lessons in all these different aspects of my reality that are all fueled by the Creator's light. Right. And so that's, when someone asks you the weather, you gotta, have to say like, well, why is this person asking about the weather? Like, I mean, they like what they wanna, what are they're cold, they're hot, like what they want to experience, like what's the point? No, I want to understand what are the conditions. And through the conditions, I can understand your soul, right? Because all the conditions are built for the soul to be able to go through this experience. And then you wouldn't be able to achieve your tikkun at this particular moment in another particular place. Even though the world wants to tell us that we're missing out and we should be somewhere else and we need more of what we have and we need this whole thing. I mean, come on. So, so that's the reality, right? Now the thing is, even with all that being said, it's our relationship with that truth that determines our quality of life, right? Because if we don't see that all these things are part of God's creation, these all are part of God's light, then from that perspective, we could lose sight of it and get into the good and bad stuff. Oh, this is a good day because these things happen, and it was a bad day because that. But then I'm limiting reality to my own intellect, right? If I accept that there's a creator, why would I want to accept what's happening to my intellect when I'm a part of another 9 billion intellects that are on planet Earth? So instead of just saying my intellect is the king of everything and it's the master of everything, no, I want to subjugate that desire and try in all my days and all my efforts to align it or connect it to God's will. Right? Because that's it. Because other than that, it's just ego, right? It's just an ego situation where it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm the right guy and I know what's best and this and and you can't judge people for not wanting to participate in that. Right? Because like even though we're talking about it openly, there's people have had different life situations where it's like there's such an enormous amount of pain and pain for lifetimes that this basic stuff of just taking accountability and looking at what's going on, is crazy. But I want to go into Rabbi Sachs, but one of the things I do want to do, I don't know if you guys, you know, saw, my latest Facebook post, right? But it's in light of this whole Temple Mount experience. But I want to just go over it really quick because it's something I would say, but I actually wrote it out and shared it with other people. But the point is just saying this. I want to connect to it because it's a very foundational concept. Okay, so hey, I read Rabbi Ashfaq and I read Rabbi Mordecai Yosef ben Abraham. I read them too. It's Torah, right? It's Torah. All right. So anyway, so it says like this. I'm not gonna say Rabbi Mordecai. He says like this, right? No, should I do the third person thing? Like, am I like a boxer? If I do that, like if I start talking about myself in the third person. All right, I'm just gonna be normal. I'm just gonna say this is. I wrote this. I wrote this. All right, fine. So it says the Temple Mount and the human soul are interly linked together. Whoa! The Temple Mount in the old city of Jerusalem and the human soul are connected together. What's going on? So how? Right? The human soul has one desire to receive the light force of the Creator all day, nonstop, even while sleeping. Now, who said that? Who did we learn that said that to us? You guys remember? Rabbi Cook, right? He says the soul is always in a frame of tefillah. It's always yearning to connect to Hashem. It's always nonstop. That's its only function, right? He said that in his essay about prayer. And he says the Temple Mount is a spiritual technology acting as the conduit of God's light force and his reality. Now, where does this such an idea come from? This comes from David Melech. This comes from Shmuel. This comes from King Solomon, right? Which is that this was a place where people from all the nations would come and bring sacrifices, right? There were people would come and bring atonements, right? Everything was functioning out of the temple. This was the relationship. And so because those atonements, because of those sacrifices, because of those charitable offerings, because of those things, people were able to be cleansed, nations were able to be cleansed. Like one example you could say is like during the time of Sukkot, right? During that time, they would do water libations on the Temple Mount. And the Kohanim, the priests, would do certain meditations and connections, and it would purify the water in different parts of the world, removing any type of contamination, right? So if there's a place where there's like some type of like pollution or some type of toxicity or some negative bacteria in a place in the world, the Kohanim, through the service of the temple, were able to remove that, the negativity within the water. We're able to remove that out of it through those through the water libations, and then from there, be able to cleanse the water for the people. So this is for all of humanity. So the Temple Mount is a spiritual technology acting as a conduit of God's light, force, and reality. Okay, so most of the pain and suffering existing in the world today, because there is, okay, so this whole concept of acknowledging the pain and suffering is something that actually I learned from the Rav Berg at the Kabbalah Center. He talked about this nonstop. The pain of suffering, addressing the pain and suffering. Why is there pain and suffering in the world? Because like in the West, especially like the environment to in, everything's about like, you know, escapism, So it's like acknowledging such a big concept that there's people all over the world that are suffering and in pain. And we want to fragment it. We'd be like, oh, well, this is happening in sub-Saharan Africa. This is happening in Asia. This is happening in Korea. This is happening in, Eastern Europe. This is, you know what I mean? This is happening in the Balkans, whatever, right? And we take pain in the world and we isolate it. Instead of saying like, no, we're all one soul, we're all connected, and pain is a collective experience that we have in humanity that perhaps we could get rid of. But at this point, I'm saying most of the pain and suffering in the world today is because there is a global disconnection between God's life force and the soul, the souls living people on planet Earth. So what we're seeing is like this whole concept, right? This whole concept of, and a lot of this is very Rav Ashlag too, by the way, like in terms of his understanding of how the world was designed, and the vessels, and the vessels receiving God's light, and the nourishment, and then you bring in Rabbi Chaim Vital, who talks about the nourishment of the soul, right? So I'm showing you how I'm bringing in. I'm not even mentioning the source, but I'm bringing in the thought process, things that I've studied with you, right? And so Rabbi Chaim Vital, as you guys know, talks about the idea of the light force of the creator going into the limbs of the soul, or the 613 parts of the soul, and that fueling the 613 parts of the body, right? And then that connecting us to the 613 parts of the Shekhinah, right? And by doing the mitzvah, we bind it all together. So this is the school of thought of here. So when we talk about this idea, is because there's a global disconnection of the life force of God and the souls on planet Earth. So that's what we're saying. That's the issue that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the issue of there's billions of souls on planet Earth, and they're not receiving the proper light that they need. And because of that, there's an aspect of pain and suffering versus fulfillment. Okay? When people do not acknowledge they have a soul with needs, right? You don't have a soul with needs. If you don't acknowledge that, they develop a frame of thinking only acknowledging the externalities of life. This is very Rav Ashlag, not the internal, which leads to the psychology. This is like Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, right? Because I'm going into a contemporary form of understanding, which is psychology, which leads to the psychology of seeing themselves as the effect of reality and not the cause. Which is also a thing I've also heard a lot from Rob Berg. He used to speak a lot causing this idea. Right? So this idea of saying that if I live in a world that, okay, so what is the power of knowing about the soul? And obviously we have to write many books about this and talk about this because is such a dire issue. But the point is saying, like, what is the strength? What is this whole concept of the soul? The soul is saying that the body is only there as it's just it's a garment. The reality is through the soul. So if I don't acknowledge that that is the reality, and I only am focusing on the garments, then I'm not able to understand what's even happening around me. And then I develop this idea that life is just happening. I'm just having these experiences. It's just happening. It's random. Every day's random. I don't know why I'm dealing with this. Woe is me. Versus me knowing that I have a soul that came into this world for correction. And so every experience that I have in this lifetime brings me one step closer to what? It brings me one step closer to it brings me one step closer to this perfection of the person I am, no matter where I'm at. The world cannot tell me I live in a ghetto, right? How do you tell me I live in a ghetto? This is Hashem's creation. This is exactly what my soul needed. This is the Garden of Eden. But you want to tell me I live in a ghetto? See, now you've offset it, and you're able to do that because I have no knowledge of my soul. So now that you've now defined my reality, which your definition is incorrect. This is exactly what my soul needed to achieve its destiny. And you want to take that away from me. So this is what we're working with, right? And so this is the idea of this idea set, which leads to this consciousness. He says, and this is the basis of all human suffering. The perception they're only the effect and not the cause of their life. This is it. This is it. You know, let's put it in, as Rabbi Sachs said, let's put it in a nutshell. Right? And say, at the end of the day, why are people upset? Why are people suffering? Why are people traumatized? Because there's no acknowledgement of the soul. So the experiences that we have, we can only rationalize it through pleasure and pain. This feels good, this hurts. So therefore, what feels good is tov, and what feels bad is ra. Really? I mean, don't say that to a person in the gym, right? The person working in the gym would tell you, man, I went through hell in there, but I got stronger, you know? So, anyways, we had to work through these thoughts. So this is the thing. So from there, this is how you mind control people because they have no idea of purpose. They are looking for purpose. The purpose they were given when we say Modi Ani, that's it. Modi Ani's purpose. God put my soul back into my body. He brought it back here. It must have a reason. Or, no, oh, must, wait, that's too goyish. It has a reason. I have something to fulfill. I have another day of correction. That's my purpose every day. So therefore, how do I deal with this correction? You know, I gotta do things for my soul. I gotta feed my soul. And the things that present themselves to me, I gotta shift that too. But if I don't have that, if I don't have a soul, I'm just an external entity, then then I go into the frame of victim consciousness. And how many people do we know that are in the frame of victim consciousness? They don't even see their own patterns that they do. They don't see how they create the destruction. They're just like, wait, how did this happen to me? Wait, you just did this, and this. What do you mean? It's not random. We create reality, like it or not. We create it. Right? Who has the courage to say, I want to give $10 million in charity? Which means you have to make $100 million. Right? Oh no, man, I can't think like that. No, what do you mean? I'm asking God, to pay my bills, to take care of my family. What do you mean? Talk about 10 million. What are you talking about? It's the same. You're asking for the same thing. But the only difference is 100 million makes you responsible for others. If it makes you responsible for others, okay, I need for me and my family. Okay, very nice. So let's go to a higher level though. All right, 100 million, that's too much. Okay, fine. Fine, it's too much. Okay, fine. 10 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you give 1 million in charity. The point is, these are all very high levels, right? These are all very high levels. But the point is breaking through the fact that we were trained by a society that only understood itself on an externality level. In this direct connection to the infinite reality that we know as Hashem, the Ein Sof, this infinite reality, here's our voice, here's our speech, here's our request, here's what we're going through. It hears it. So why not ask for abundance, not for the sake of me, but for the sake of other people? Hashem, give me $100 million. Give me the ability to give 10 million in charity. Okay, you don't, if it's too much, go lower. But you're putting limitations on the creator. And so we go further and we say that the human acknowledgement of having a soul is accepting its needs. Okay, so let me say that right. See, I gotta read myself correctly. The human acknowledgement of the soul, the human acknowledgement of having a soul, is the acceptance of its needs. When a person accepts their need, when a person accepts their soul has needs, there's also an acceptance of a provider. The provider for the soul's needs is the creator of the universe. Hey man, I'm tearing up, man. I'm tearing up. This is me. So anyway, but the point is saying that this is what we're bringing into the world, right? One of the things we were talking about yesterday was this idea of like the Chabad model and those types of things model, but in a different frame. Yeah, I agree with you. But the key thing is being able to ask God to give us that wisdom to create that structure for a generation that needs to connect their soul to God's light. I've not received any information. I personally have not received any type of inspiration, revelation, whatever you want to call it, in that area, right? Because that's a very high level, right? To have a structure where people could say, like, okay, I am not, like, say a person is not Christian, not Jewish, not Muslim, anything, but they believe in the Creator and they want to receive light from the Creator. And so you want to give them an instruction manual how to do that. That's what this is about, right? That's where I'm like, that's what I'm trying to get to, because it's like, other than that, religion has corrupted too many things. You know, it just messed up everything, whether it's Christian religion or Jewish religion or Muslim religion, all these religion, all these dogmas, you know, I can't deal with that. I'm with the Torah, I'm with the 613 mitzvot, and I understand that there are certain souls that are binded to that through their neshama, and I understand that other souls have other levels of desires, but nevertheless, they also need to be connected to the Creator. So just saying to someone like, hey, 7 laws of Noah, I mean, I hear that. I mean, I hear 7. Okay, I get it. You know, you can eat animal. I get it. Sure. You know, but the point is just saying that, like, I'm going even. I'm taking the conversation a step further and saying that it's voluntary, right? Meaning that if a person wants to connect to the light force of Hashem when he wakes up in the morning, there's ways to do that, right? The whole idea of Modi'ani that came much later on. That's like what, like 15th century or something like this, right? And that idea originated in Sefer Hayom. So it's just saying that, like, a lot of these ideas on building a spiritual life, the sages of Israel have incorporated that into our lifestyle. What I'm saying is saying that, you know, the other nations of the world need to understand the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, the God of Moshe, Yeshua ben Nun, right? That God, like, the world needs to know about it, because that system, right? That system, because we're using God, that system is what nourishes the soul. All right, so the question is like this: what does the Creator provide for the soul? The Creator provides for the soul. The Creator provides. He said, okay. So the response to that question is the Creator provides or makes accessible an aspect of itself which we refer to the light force. Our job as Jews is to access Hashem's light force through the spiritual technology of proper behavior, right? And this is in a frame of what me and Otina we're learning the Ramchal, pretty in depth, and he's all about behavior modification to gain these attributes. She says that we access the light force of created through proper behavior, which includes the laws of the Torah, allowing ourselves, the Jewish people, like the Temple Mount, to be the conduit of God's light for all of humanity. So here, the idea is connecting the Temple Mount itself, the base of Mikdash, the whole concept, to the Jew itself. So the Jew itself and the base of Mikdash, they're actually the same component. They're not separate components. Because the Jew, without the base of Mikdash, as we are right now, we still have to be a light to nations. The base of Mikdash is an expression of making that light even more accessible to other people through metaphysics, right? In essence. So we get more radical here. The Temple Mount is the only solution to solving the issue of human beings on planet Earth not receiving the proper amount of light for their souls. This is my argument. A lot of people would agree with me. Okay, it's not a minority argument by any means, but there's a lot of people that would agree with me. But the point is, nevertheless, is that right? And then we close it off with this: the Jewish people were given the spiritual technology coordinates. Right, so we got to get technical with people because we speak in religious terms, the ear turns off. The light of God comes and forsakes thee, and the rapture of the soul. And people are like, oh my God, get me out of here. No, so I've used language that we use, right? And this is also inspired a lot by Rabbi too, by the way, obviously. The Jewish people were given the spiritual technologies coordinates through Moshe on Mount Sinai. So he was giving technology coordinations to activate the Temple Mount's ability to distribute the light properly to the four corners of the world. Okay, so we all know who this guy is. This is the guy, the beard is getting gray. It is. But you know what? The Torah will age a brother. So it's like this. So right behind me, where that place you see is built, right behind me, that is where the Midrashim and the sages teach that God put the first man. The first creation of Adam was his body was laid out from one side to the other, like this whole upper deck is that, right? This whole upper deck is that. So he laid him out and he blew a neshama inside of Adam. All right, that's what the sages teach. This happened right where this this building in the dome is, literally right behind me. This is where the first man was created in the beginning of the awakening of this concept called Adam. Right now, another thing right behind me is the same place where Abraham. This is Har Maria, right? This is where Abraham took Isaac for the sacrifice. This is where he built the altar, right behind me. This is crazy. We're talking about this, right? Literally, right behind me. This is the place, right? Also, right behind me is the place where Jacob had his dream, right? Where Jacob had his dream. This is the place, right? Right behind me, right? This is the place where Jacob had his dream, and he went up to the higher levels. He went up the ladder. He went up he was the boss sulam, right? And so that was Jacob, right? And then when you hear about David purchasing land in Jerusalem, this is the land behind me that he purchased, right? And later his son King Solomon built the temple here, and we know all the stories of that. And so, like, what I was saying yesterday is like up here to the corner, you can't see it on the left side on the way my screen is at least. This is on that left side is where the Kohen Gadol would live. He lived there, and I was like, God, you have no idea how much intense the light is up here. You can't explain it. It's like you can't explain it. I could never explain it. Oh, what does it mean light? What does it mean energy? Well, in America, there's no such concept. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no such concept in America of of light and energy. You know what I mean? Like in a physical location. I mean, maybe you could say some Indian places, maybe, I don't know, but it's just no idea. In the East, there's a lot of places like this by a lot of different traditions, mostly based off of the Jews, right? But I'm saying that inspiration the Jews brought to the world, right? The Israelites brought to the world in terms of the holiness of areas, right? The Christians, Muslims, and derivatives from those, generations, they went places and had certain historical events, and they had a sanctity to it, right? But the point is, I'm right here behind me is Bereshit, right? They said during the flood of Noah, this part never went under. It never went underground. Where I'm standing at, never went underground. And this is where when Noah sent a dove out, and the dove went to an olive tree and brought back a branch. It was here. So I'm just saying, whatever, okay, what do you want? I'm telling you, it's out of this planet. It's not the same world, right? How do I explain that? I can't. You have to experience it. Anyway, so here's, because of, head of security, Itamar Ben Gavir, we're able to do certain prostrations, this, whatever. So you can see me. This is how they used to pray during the time of the temple. When they would fall on their faces in front of Hashem, this is exactly the way they do it. Not different than how the Muslims pray, bow down. But this is me doing this here. And you can see there, you can see how we have to be protected by security and all these types of things. All right. Okay. So anyway, so the point is, and the reason why I'm mentioning that, I'm saying this and teaching this point as a frame of inspiration. What Black leaders, and I'm moving us away from that. What Black leaders have addressed these issues that I addressed in the Facebook post? Who've addressed the condition of the soul? Who's addressed it and pointed out to the people where the light force of God emanates into this world at? Which one? Like all the institutions that we have. I'm not saying there weren't leaders that said this. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just asking you if you know of them, because the institutions that we have around us do not acknowledge the soul. So what I said to most academics is frivolous and blasphemous, ridiculous. Right? That's the world that we live in. So the people that the academic system embraces cannot contradict that. They would have to support it. They would have to be groomed by it. So I'm not saying there aren't Black spiritualists that existed who talked about the soul and this, and they learned Kabbalah and met masters and this. Maybe there has been. I've never heard of them. And I'm not saying it as a way to limit other forms of contribution. Of course, big people, but I'm saying Malcolm X was not dealing with the condition of our soul. He was dealing with the external self, right? Martin Luther King was dealing with the external self. They were holding by Greek philosophy, wrapped in Christianity, wrapped in Islam, right? The commandment keepers, the Black Hebrew Israelites, right? Or the Hebrew Israelites, they don't like the Black thing. The Hebrew Israelites, even now, okay, Rabbi Matthews, this, where can I read? Where can I read? Rabbi Matthews, did you write a Devar Torah on Parsha Truma? And again, he may have. It is not here. I don't know. But he kind of comes from my culture. I don't know if he's like, I guess he was from the West Indies. I don't know, but I'm saying he was Black, right? So it'd be nice to read some of his writings, right? I mean, something. Rabbi Levy, Rabbi Ford, somebody, you guys write any drash on the weekly parsha? Nobody recorded it. You never wrote it down. You didn't want to leave that for other generations. Like, help me understand that. Like, where were you guys holding at? And it's not being critical. I'm just saying that every generation has a certain set of challenges and a certain set of opportunities, right? And so I'm saying in this generation that we're in, the conversation is about the neshama and the neshama's relation to creation as it relates to our actions and our perceptions and our intentions as it relates to the rest of creation. black, white, all this. Okay, I wrote the book, I Am the Black Jew, but I did that because it was like, what was the concept around the title of the book? It was just like, for me, it was just like, stop trying to sensationalize me, right? Don't come at me like, oh, well, you're a black convert. Wow, wow, what's your story? No, no, I'm a genius. And you need to learn from me because I have things to contribute that would benefit your soul. Now, somebody could say that sounds like ego. Okay, but you know what? How do they sound coming at me like I'm supposed to entertain them with my glorious story to their Judaism, right? I'm so blessed to be in your. No, it's not your Judaism. Okay, it's God's, right? And the Israelites, right? And we're all collectively a part of it through different experiences. So you come at me like that. So I said like Birdman. I said put some respect on my name. So I call my book "My the Black Jew." You know what I mean? Like just like I'm giving you a comprehensive understanding of the learning that goes in yeshiva. Everyone agreed with that. The biggest rabbis in Jerusalem would agree with I wrote in that book, right? So that's intellect. That's not black. Deal with me on the merits of my soul, right? So I put the black on it because it was just like put some respect on my name, and not only me, like all these other they never talk about the black intellect. They talk about the black struggle. They talk about the black voice, all this thing. But like, I mean, like these dudes were like genius guys. And I'm not talking about just the mainstream people that we learn. I'm talking about just people in Black history in general, like the thinking process to be under such subjugation on so many levels, but and still express levels of creativity of some of the deepest levels of like love, passion, forgiveness, acceptance, perseverance, all this. I mean, there's entire musical eras were just based around Black people persevering, right? So why can't we study that? Right? Why do we have to study the sensationalized aspect? Like, how many times was he whipped on a plantation? Oh man, 72 times, man, that's crazy. So it's just that's where I'm at on that. So for some people that may be a turn off, but to me it's like, no, I'm a Jew. What Jew that grows up in a reality that says you're black is not going to respond to it at some point? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you want me to you want me to say what Malcolm X said? You want me to say what Martin Luther King said? I mean, no, I'm black like them, deemed by a set of people who tricked my ancestors that they were oppressors, right? Because you have no oppression over me, because only I can impress myself by disconnecting myself from the life force of the Creator. You do not have that power. You lied to me. Now you've been violent. You've been violent. You've been inhumane, right? You violated the very laws that you try to hold the rest of the world on, right? In terms of humanitarianism, yes, you violated those things, but you do not have the power to do that. And in fact, you are reflective of me separating myself from God's will. So no, you did not have power over me. No, you did not enslave me. I enslaved myself. And that's where I'm at. And that's what happens with, a kid like myself who grew, I'm not a kid, but growing up, who was given access to freedoms of thought, and I connect to the Torah, and I look at blackness, and I'm like, you know what? You didn't have that power. No, you didn't say me. Yes, you were violent. Yes, you were violent. You subjugated with force. You did all these things. You did brainwashing techniques because the people I come from didn't understand your level of brutality. We didn't know it existed. Okay, so there was no preparation for it. And so yeah, so we went through it and we're here and okay, and so a few centuries of abuse, we figured out that it was a massive mind control situation and we get it. And I'm not even mad at you about it. Why? Because God has told me that it's only reflective of my disconnection. That doesn't mean you have a right to do that or to continue to do it. But the reality is like I have the ability to change it. And that's the difference between being a slave and a free man. Is that what I am experiencing, I have the ability to change it. And so that's the focus, right? And so for me, we know that the physical light in this world comes down over Jerusalem, over this area. That's where it's at. We know that we live in a world that doesn't acknowledge that we have a soul. There's a disconnection. There's the disconnection. The world that we live in and the light that God wants to give us. There's no acknowledgement of it. Who thinks about it? Go outside. You guys are in Texas. Whoever else is listening for other parts of the world, go outside and look around and say, how many people are looking at this physical reality as a mechanism to connect to God's light in various different ways? Go outside, look around, go knock on their doors. God's light. You know what they'll do? They'll start reading you Bible verses. God's light's right in front of you. It's right here, right in front of you. Now, not like through the verse, this, now in front of it. The verses help us awaken us to this reality. It's there. The light force is there. Be kind to someone next to you. Connect. There you go. That's simple. Be kind. So the point is just saying that, you know, and like I said, I'm just drawing off of different teachings I've learned over the last few months with you guys, right? So it's not like I'm saying like, hey man, I'm the smartest man in the world. I'm not. I'm telling you, I took this perspective and that perspective and this perspective to explain all these ideas that I had inside of me that I want to communicate with the world. So I'm trying not to. I'm going not off of my ego. I'm going off of the sages through the knowledge of the Torah, through the perspective of the Torah. I'm not saying every point that I went through, I say, hey, this is where I got this perspective from. And through that, I'm part of the tradition. So I'm in the same bracket of writings as any rabbi in any generation. I'm just speaking off of the tradition, and I'm coming from my perspective as with in an oppressive environment where they called me a black man, or Negro, or African American, whatever the name the oppressor chooses, and I'm speaking on that standpoint. So I'm like, bro, I'm a Jew. Like I'm good. I'm bigger than your blackness. Sorry. That offends you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My ancestors stood on Mount Sinai. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. Like I get it. The whole thing, your history, we shall overcome. We've been, but my ancestors been on that. We just were in diaspora, and we completely lost understanding of who we were. That I had to reacclimate myself through God's will, through their merit. Through their merit, I had the ability to reacclimate myself. So anyways, the point is saying, so for me, like that's where I'm at with this conversation. You know what I mean? And so like a lot of my responses, it's like, yeah, so someone can say, oh, well, you sound anti-black. It's like, bro, anti-black, anti-white, anti-American, anti-Indian, whatever you want to say, is all made up concepts, bro, that are based around people not acknowledging people have souls. You know what I'm saying? Like, what made the people who stayed in Egypt and the people who left different? They had a different desire level. What was the desire level based off of? The neshama. So you want to come to me and they tell me that and to pretend that like I don't have a soul and I should just go along with everything and blend in and be okay with it. It's like, nah, man, I'm not doing that. And see, Kanye, he has a little bit of that, rebellious type energy to the system, but he doesn't have the technology. So he's just gonna go down. He just went down the route all these other people did. Oh well, it's the Jews, and they're like, all right, bro, we get it, man, we got it. Now what? Everybody gonna wake up. What? And what? You another Holocaust? And then what? You know what I'm saying? Oh, but this time we'll kill every single one. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the only thinking that these people have. When you don't have the technology, right? You go down very, very dark places. He's gonna pay for that. Right? Everything that Kanye's doing, he's going to pay for it immensely in this lifetime. We're going to watch him. Can't go against us. Can't go against us. We're defeating countries right now. You think you could go against us? You think you're just going against music executives? You're going against every Jew on planet Earth, bruh. All of our tefillah is against you. You want to compete with that? You want your family to compete with that? You want to put them in that position of judgment? You're that brave? You're that brave? You want to challenge all of us? Okay, go and do it. There's a bunch of dead people all throughout the Middle East who did the same thing. Dead, blown to bits. You want to challenge us? Oh, but Kanye black. He black. I'm supposed to, I'm this dude making songs about Hitler, dog. You think those people who want to kill you think those people, you think they're like, oh, well, he's Ashkenaz and he's not. No, they want to kill every one of us. Every single one of us. They don't care. They're built that way. They're built that way. How can you create a prison industrial complex in America? They're built that way, right? So Kanye's coming and it's just like, bro, like, I mean, I love for you, bro. I defended you. But it's like, now you're going to this extent? You want to go to war? You want to go to war? Okay, you go to war. We got you, bro. We got you. We got you now. You want that? You want that smoke? All right, fine. Before we, hey, the guy, he has some Jews. They're bullying him in the music industry. Took advantage. Just blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. They start playing games with his finances. This okay, fine. But now you want to just like go full rogue and Hitler? Like you got people backing you up, bro. Those are my future children that are endangered by this guy's rhetoric. Every person that I love, every person I connected to, nieces, nephews, we're Jews. Oh, but I'm only talking about these. Oh, really? So when you talk about Hitler, you're saying that the world separates us, right? Right? They're good. They're gonna come in the synagogue and be like, oh, well, not the dark ones, the light ones. Come on, bro. It's war now, bro. Like it's war now. I have no compassion for Kanye West in this whole situation now. He's finished. He's finished. And I've done a lot of interviews about Kanye. You know what I'm saying? A lot. No, he's not that bad. This, blah, blah. Okay, we're trying to figure it out. He's upset. No, now it's war. Period. It is. It's on site. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is like it's all good. So it's going to just going to Rabbi Shach. But you know what? I'm a black rabbi. I'm the African American rabbi, right? So I got to talk about this. Kanye got smoke with all of us now. So he wants it. Okay, you want to battle the Jews? All right, good luck. Good luck, buddy. See how far he gets you. And the thing about it, this guy Kanye put his whole family in Hollywood. He's going against the very people and the very environments that we control. We control these environments. It's a real thing. Jews control these environments. Meaning, me myself, as a person who converted to Judaism, could get in contact with many people in finance and any other media space on the basis of relationships that I've developed. Right? It's a real network. It's a real thing. I'm just a religious guy, so I'm not in those spaces. I'm not, in, mainstream, business America. No, I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm teaching. But the point is saying that these people are all connected. And when you take a position and you go out and you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to promote hatred and violence against Jews because I'm upset. And you're not taking account of all the people you're endangering, all the people you're affecting. And you want me to give you a pass because we have the same skin tone? No, bro, you're Amalek, right? And it's on site now because it's like you can't do that. You're endangering lives, right? And you think it's okay, and you think you're some type of martyr. You have what are you accomplishing? You know how many black people are Jews, bro? Like you know what I mean? It's close to like 500,000 of them in Israel, mostly Ethiopian. Right? You know what I mean? Igbos, different people that are claiming they're Jews around the world that are black Africans, all these people, and you want to do this based off of some executives in the music industry? Call them out. Do songs about their names. Say, I'm doing a song about Leo Cohen. I'm doing a song by Todd Moskowitz. I'm doing a song by, whoever. You know what I'm saying? Like, do it. But you're gonna like attack a whole group of people? It's just like, bro, like it's over for him, man. It's over. And we're gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it. And there's no compassion, right? And it's not like, oh, well, Kanye, I'm the first person to have compassion for another African American, right? First person. This is over the top, and this transcends that past. This is on the path of being an evil person. And he said himself, I'm evil. So, all right, fine. Whatever. You'll deal with it. And yeah, any thoughts and responses on that? I don't get controversial, but hey.
No, Baruch Hashem. nothing. I don't, not about Kanye West, but I want to just a reflection on the post that you put out.
Mm.
The section there about, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. Just the mindset about the Temple Mount being the place of a conduit that would allow the light of God, the light force of God, to be transmitted to mankind. And that, and even from the aspect of that every Jew should be a light or a conduit that is making the light force of God accessible to mankind. It made me think about a story, something in my childhood that
Mm.
I experienced. When I lived in Port Arthur, there's two sides to the Port Arthur area, right? And predominantly, which you either live on the west side or you live on the east side. And I remember I had the luxury and the blessing to be able to live on both sides of Port Arthur at one point in time as a child. Now, the west side of Port Arthur is pretty much predominantly, the majority there is the Black community. Okay, the Black high school, and it's always in most towns, even in Texas. I don't know about other towns, but there's always a railroad track that divides the east side from the west side, or divides two sections of the towns, the Black community and the other community. I'm say the other community. Okay, so I remember growing up, and I went to Booker T. Washington Elementary School, and I remember just growing up. I had a wonderful childhood there, but it was when my parents, when they moved to the east side, there was something that took place that I had never experienced before. One day I was at home, I was young, and I heard playing, this music playing, and it was like this, almost like carnival music, like circus music. And I was like, "What is that?" And I remember running to the door and running outside, and what did I see? Is this white truck playing this music, and it's the ice cream man. And I was like, "Wow!" And so every day after school, the ice cream man would make his way down our block. And when you talked about that conduit and making it accessible, it made me think about that, because on the west side, I didn't even know what the ice cream man was.
Mm.
But not in Port Arthur is not huge. It's not even 10 miles wide. But we're talking about not even maybe a half a mile, maybe a mile radius between the Black community and the other community. And they got access to the ice cream man with all the children. They knew consistently that the ice cream man was going to show up every day. But on the west side, never saw the ice cream man. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it was. So with that accessibility, going back to Rabbi Matthews, may his memory be blessed.
Amen.
What I look at the aspect of, when you consider what he accomplished and what Rabbi Levy accomplished during that time frame. Blacks couldn't even go; they could not enroll in NYC. They
Mm.
couldn't even get access to get a library card. So when he reached out to the Jewish community, he was rejected. So he had no access to a lot of books. But the books that he did have, he established synagogues. Rabbi Levi went to Ethiopia, was ordained, and learned much of the synagogue service and brought it back to our communities. We do the dishonor when we speak lightly of our elders. we look at our people as Jews. And I believe that we need to take what we would consider scraps today, and many of us don't even have those scraps. But we get those scraps, and we will progress. We'll eat these books up. Why? Because through the mercy of Hashem, He's opening doors. In the book of Daniel, it says that in the last days, knowledge shall increase throughout the earth, and that we will shine as brightly as the stars in the Shamayim, and that we will lead many into righteousness. So when we speak about Rabbi Matthews, Rabbi Levy, Rabbi Ford, we got to be very careful. I can't deny my elders because it's required that I look back at my fathers. When I look at Rabbi Akiva, I look at my fathers. And it's something that I'm always be very passionate about, because when you lose that, you lose everything. You lose yourself.
No, I definitely connect to that. My question is Rabbi Matthews, Rabbi Ford in line with Rabbi Akiva? That's my question.
What, based off of the information that they receive, with the first aspect of we are Jews and keeping the Shabbat and keeping what they knew to be halakha, starting a school of rabbis, picking up those aspects, taking whole communities and moving to Ethiopia, and then bringing it back. If you've got limited access and the house that you go to is not working with you, then the idea is that you got to look at, if they had the ice cream truck coming down their block, they would have enjoyed ice cream. But if you got to go across the tracks and go chase the ice cream truck down and he keeps rolling, but you say, you know what? I'm going to make my own ice cream because I can't get access to this. Denied access is very pivotal. So what I'm saying is that the ideology of what we're talking about, when we say the being a conduit, Rabbi Matthews was a conduit, because just the concept that we are the people of the covenant, and the concept of not looking at European Jews as the synagogue of Satan or some other imposters. Rabbi Matthews didn't teach that. What he taught was, these are our brothers. So when you look at that whole aspect, and you can go online, he got a couple of sermons, but you got to realize, I mean, man, it was difficult. It was difficult. But through that heritage, we have to, we say, well, it's difficult to say somebody's gonna be, when some people hadn't even, in the Hebrew Israelite community, there's those that have never even heard of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Nachman. But when the ice cream truck rolls into their neighborhood and they read it, it's sweet. And so that's where I'm at on that.
No, I hear that, and I definitely like. I think an example that I would use on that is, say, the situation with Ben Ami, right? Ben Ami came here to Israel as a Hebrew Israelite. Yeah, his movement from Chicago. You know the story. They went to Liberia, the whole thing. And so when they came to Israel, the the government was like, okay, you guys, you guys are Jews, whatever. It's 1960s, right? And so it is very well could be connected and inspired by Rabbi Matthews and his teachings, right? So they come here to Israel, and the Israelis over and over again offered them to join the collective, right? To join like everybody, because everyone who came to Israel, none of these people had any real records of being Jewish. You know what I mean? Like when the 1940s, late 1940s, because 48 they established the country. So like 40s, 50s, I think the people from Chicago got here in 1960, like 1966, 1965, something like this, right? So they had chances to. You want to come to Israel. Most of these people, there are people from India, there are people from Middle Eastern countries, there are people from Europe, there are people from, Arab countries, whatever, that all came here because it was a right of return, right? And it was a whole thing, right of return. So anyway, so the Hebrew Israelites show up, say, hey, it's a right of return. Hey, we're Jews, we're here. So they said, okay, we want to integrate you guys in the community. And so Ben Ami told them no. And from 1965 all the way to now, he's resisted that dynamic. Now, over because they didn't have choices, they had to integrate in certain ways, right? Like the kids are part of the society. But he brought a lot of pain to those people that followed him because he wanted to stay in control, right? And so we have to be honest with ourselves about things. It's like a lot of these movements were not about, oh, well, the white people don't accept us. It's about like, no, these were cult movements where these people had control over their communities, right? And they didn't want to move past that space because that was their economic mechanism. And I'm not putting that on Rabbi Matthews and those particular guys because I've not heard that sentiment by them, right? And I do know Rabbi Fournier, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, who's the chief rabbi of the whole Hebrew Israelite board of rabbis, type of thing, right? And so that type of thing. But at the same time, it's like, I hear those sentiments, but I just can't just automatically give people a pass and say that Rabbi Matthews is my ancestor. You know what I'm saying? Like I just can't just because of what? Right. So what is Elijah Muhammad? He's my ancestor too. What makes him different? Oh well, he's saying we're Hebrews. He's saying that we're descendants of Muhammad or Arabs or whatever, right? These type of things. So it's just saying like it just, and the thing is, it's like even if we want to say like okay, these people are our ancestors. Okay, fine. Say that they are ancestors. Okay, fine. But who decides who I choose as my ancestors? My ancestors is my dad. It's my grandfather. It's my great grandfather. My great grandfather. You know what I'm saying? Like Robert Matthews, he wasn't from his ancestors weren't from the plantation. They're from the West Indies. You know what I'm saying? But so because he's dark, he's my ancestor now, and he said something that I agree with. I mean, I don't know if I could just give people that pass. Like I mean, yeah, my grandfather, that's my ancestor. I can tell you about his life. And his father. So it just this saying they from Alabama. My great grandfather. They're from Alabama, and they went to Georgia, and then they end up in Ohio. So those are my ancestors. But just to say that Rabbi Matthews, who's from the West Indies, he's not African American. His family did not go through chattel slavery, and because there is some information that he'd started a movement and had different people, but there's been a lot of black movements by black leaders that they don't talk about. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of spiritual leaders that have existed. Some of them not been so good, right? But there's been, a lot of different people. So I don't know. I just don't know if I could give just everybody a pass and say they're my ancestor because, they were considered black in America because, that's the way the system was. And they have ideas that I somewhat agree with. Why didn't he make those people convert them? Why didn't he do circumcisions? They never did that. Right? So they had all those people that could have circumcised them, put them through the same process that any other Jew would have to go through, and put them through those processes. But he said he told them, right? Matthew told those people they didn't have to convert. He said, you guys are already that. You don't have to do anything. How could you not say that? Jacob's children, descendants, could not eat by the Paschal lamb unless they went through circumcision. And you want to say what? Because I went to a hospital in America, I'm circumcised? You're not. You're not circumcised. You're not. Whoever told you that is a lie. You're not circumcised. You're not in the covenant of God. Right? If you don't have a circumcision, you're not in it. You're not. Sorry, I don't care who your grandfather was and this and how holy they were. But no, it doesn't exist by the pasuk in Genesis. You have to have a proper bris milah. Right? So did Rabbi Matthews have that? And that's why people who do come in the covenant connect to Abraham. Right? Because I can't even say my own father had a proper circumcision. Because he didn't. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying, like, it's just like being in the reality of these things. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, I mean, because of the way we were in Western society, we had this dynamic where if you were dark complected, we all got clumped in together, and our ideas got clumped in together. Even what's his name, Marcus Garvey? You know, was his family through chattel slavery? So it's just saying that, like, a lot of people, you know, got mixed into the conversation because of segregation. So I don't know. If you consider Rabbi Matthews one of your forefathers, I don't have a problem with that. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, by me, I have critical thought on it. I'm like, what makes him what makes me connected to him? You know, like what? Because he's black, this, blah, blah. Why didn't he circumcise those people? He knew none of them had proper circumcisions. And you know what? And if they did have proper circumcisions, they wouldn't be dependent on his community. And then what happened after he left? What happened to all those communities? 22 synagogues they created. What happened? All those people, those communities, they're gone now. You tell them they're Jews now. What are they now? The Nation of Islam. They're Christians. They're back in the church. Like, where are they? Right? We say things like Breslov and Chabad. These people have been going for hundreds of years on this. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, by us, it's like, why don't we have the same standard? Why do we accept mediocrity? You know, but oh well, they didn't have access to this and they didn't have access to that and they couldn't do that. Well, they couldn't sit with no Yemenites. They couldn't find brothers. The Muslim brothers did it. The black Muslims did it. They learned how to speak Arabic. They converted people. They built their own masjids, the whole thing, and they're still going. Right. So it just, for me, I mean, and again, I get it, but it's just like, I mean, my father is my ancestor, you know, I mean, you know, it's my father, my grandfather, my great grandfather, my great great grandfather, my great great grandfather, my great 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 great, those are my ancestors, but I can't just give a blanket acceptance of someone who's dark complected, you know, that has some good ideas or whatnot, especially if I can't see any of the goodness of it today. And to say that he didn't proclamate, you know, that black people were connected to Israelites, that was an idea that existed way before he was even born in America, right? Him and his associates, and they were part of a collective bigger movement, right? The Messianic stuff and all types of stuff. So it's just like, for me, I'm just saying, like, I appreciate it, and I think it is a point of reference. I think we can draw from, when we talk about the African American experience with Judaism, I think we can draw from the experiences of Demona, right? Which I think is one of the greatest expressions of African Americans and their connection to the Torah. That's the greatest expression, is Demona. Now, I'm criticizing Ben Nami because they could have integrated into Israeli society, and who knows what could have been produced from there. But he wanted to have his own thing. He wanted to have a polygamous society and this, and they're going to create and populate and this, and all this type of stuff. But it was about them keeping control. And I got to say, you know, it's good that he brought people to the land, but a lot of people suffered in that. You know, a lot of dysfunction there, and to not acknowledge that, you know, I just think it's not part of purification. You know, like, we have to look at Ben Ami, we have to look at a lot of these people and say, like, what actually were they doing? You know, and can we just blame the Jewish community and say, oh, well, you know what, they didn't want to accept them? Well, why didn't they want to accept them? Because they're black? Is that what we're going to say? No, they didn't want to participate. You wanted to come in and say, all these black people from chattel slavery, they're Jews. That's it. Accept them now. That's it. No Torah, no nothing, no Kavana, nothing. But just accept them. And then you want to go back to the Jews and be like, oh, well, y'all didn't accept us. Well, why didn't they? Let's figure that out. I mean, we black, right? That's why they didn't accept us. They don't care about that. Okay, there are some who may, okay, but the establishment of people do not, that's not the focus. The bottom line is no one said we want to do proper circumcisions and we're banging on the doors of the Moelim of different places saying we want proper circumcisions, come to our community and do proper circumcisions by us, you know, whatever, blah, 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 draw the blood, whatever. Have two Jewish witnesses there that witness that I did that. And I went into the mikvah and said, I want to keep all of the Torah. Okay, that's big boy time. That's big boy time, right? Because after you do that, then you're passing that on. If it's intellectual, if it's the Bible and this and good ideas, okay, great. That's those are all the other societies that existed throughout history, right? They also have great literature and great wisdom and great insight. And that no, the Jewish perpetuation is through circumcision and that being passed on to father to son and entering the covenant of Abraham, entering the covenant of Israel. Right? That's what we're talking about here. Like I talked to the Hebrew Israelites, Captain Tazariak and these different guys, right? I talked to them about it. You know, you guys need to do proper circumcision. Nah, I ain't gonna do that, blah, blah, but why not? Well, you saying because you're in North America, y'all never did proper circumcisions. Never. So why not? Why would you not? Why would you not want to draw blood with a moil with witnesses there that keep Shabbat? You don't want that? Oh, because you know why? Because you don't want the order of God. You want the intellectualism of God. But you don't want the order of God where I have to submit every part of my body to God's will, even my reproductive organ, which means the women that I deal with also have to operate a certain way. Right? So that's the thing. So was Rabbi Matthew saying that? Like was he perpetuating that? Because a lot of those people that I have met that have been in the Jewish community for a while that are black, they came from those Hebrew Israelite camps. I'm not talking about um, um, the guy, the 12 charge guy, the 12. I'm not saying him. I'm saying like the Rabbi Matthews. A lot of the people that were in the black community, but they came in to Orthodox Judaism. So anyway, so that's just my position. I mean, we could disagree on it, whatever. But the point is just saying like that. That's my personal take on it. Is just saying like yeah, I hear, but it's just like I don't have to accept chitlins. You know what I mean? I understand there's oppression. Every Jewish community has been through oppression. We can't say that the African American experience of oppression was different than Jews throughout history. If we want to say that, right? If we want to say that the reason why we had limited resources, we had this, whatever. It's been only recent generations, and I'm talking about the last couple hundred years that Jews have been like prosperous. Right before that, they were nomadic, living here, this, Bedouins trading, this, doing their things, and they've been able to maintain that. So when I see like these groups, and I believe that there's other groups that we don't know about. I believe that there was actually other sincere movements that were probably more connected to halakha and these different things and Masur and these types of things as well. So I'm not saying Rabbi Matthews and those the commandment keepers were famous, but it's just saying that there's many other. And I met people. I met African Americans whose families are from Alabama and different places or different Israelite churches and these types of things. So I'm not saying as a blanket for the whole thing, but I'm saying when do we demand excellence? Right? And if we want to say that the people came before us with stepping stones, I agree with that 100%. But anything other than it being a stepping stone is a denial, in my opinion, to God's desire for his perfection, or at least the attempt of his perfection to be manifested. And none of those people are holding by that. Right? So for me, I see it, but I'm just being critically thought, like, hey, hey, you didn't have these people do circumcisions, you didn't leave Torah for them, you didn't leave halakha, and you can say, oh, well, he didn't know. Okay, fine. So what was your objective then? Like, what was your objective? Like, what was it? Like you knew you were going to die. Then what happens next? Did you know nothing about Judaism? Right? What did you know about Judaism? Because Judaism existed for 2,000 years before you came into the conversation. So did you create something different? Or did you do something in line or attempting to be in line? Like, what was it? So that's what I'm saying. I'm not clear on these points. And it's not a criticism. It's just saying, can we let something new create? Martin Luther King was not the solution. Malcolm X was not the solution. Marcus Garvey was not the solution. right? And so like that for the indoctrination that we received in America as Black people, they are right. They are the solution, right? They did great things. The white people. The only reason why I say Malcolm X did great things is because white people said it. I'm just being honest with you. And to people that I know that also are pro Malcolm X is because it's been because they read about it and he represents this a democratic voice and resisting talking strength to power or what they call it truth to power this type of thing. It's like yeah, but all that was what? Well, that's entertainment. What? How did he deal with the fact that the black person, the person called black, was here to correct the soul? Or we did, or that doesn't count. Oh, well, they didn't know about that. They didn't know about that. They didn't know about that. So anyway, I mean, like I said, we go back and forth, and I appreciate, and I would think that there's millions of people that would agree with you. You know what I'm saying? Like if they heard what I'm saying, there'll be a lot of people that agree with you, and I just don't know if Rabbi Matthews is my elder. Like I mean, I believe he was a wise man, and I want to assume he had good intentions, and I want to assume that he wanted to bring truth. I wouldn't assume these things because of who I am as a human being, right? So I wouldn't assume that he was doing something wrong. But at the same time, I had to ask myself real questions like, why didn't they create a succession of leadership where they could integrate, right? Because the Hebrew Israelite, the situation that they have, I mean, this is from Rabbi Fournier, there's people of all different types of denominations. They don't have a halacha. They don't have a system of minhagim. They don't have any of these things. It's like a shell. So either they didn't know about Judaism in that way, or they decided to neglect that part, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. Why didn't you have those people do circumcisions? You have this thing. You have this whole dynamic. Why not do that? What was the reasoning behind that? Every Jew has to be circumcised, even if you're descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's in the Torah. You have to be circumcised. I mean, like, why didn't you have those people do that? Right? And if you created rabbis, like, what was the minhagim of the rabbis? Like, what was the system of the rabbi? Because Rabbi Funia, what they're doing is it's like it's open ended. It's not like there was nothing left behind. So that's what I'm saying. So I just look at those things. If we're gonna say they had lack of resources, okay, they had the outfits. I mean, I saw the outfits. I've seen pictures of them to show that the outfits. Why not the Masura? I mean, and I'm not trying to diss. So that, and then I see people like Ben Ami. Why you isolate those people, bro? Why did you have to write the halakha for them or attempt to? Why did you have to do that? You come to Israel, you want to isolate them for what? So it's just saying, you hear tons of horror stories that came out of Demona, tons, right? And they're still fighting to integrate. And it's not like the country, and they try to play like Israel's racist. No, Israel's been fighting, like, join us, be a part of the collective society. We're not saying be Haredi, be from this, whatever, but just be adjusted normal Jews, even if you're secular, right? Which a lot of them, by the way, a lot of the kids there did. So again, anyway, so I have questions on these things. I have questions on leadership. I have question on it, and I'm just basing it off of the tradition. Like these things are not in line with that. So it's like, why? Because white people want to glorify Martin Luther King. Like, what did he do? What does his speech? What does his speeches mean? What do they mean? As a Jew, as a Jew, if as a black person, I get it. A black person, we don't have religion. We were given Christianity on a plantation. Islam came in through this like weird, nationalistic thing. Blah blah blah. This whole thing. Some black people even got into Judaism. I get it. But I'm saying, as a Jew, what did Martin Luther King's speeches mean? What did they do? They inspired people. Inspired people to do what? To do tshuva? You know what I'm saying? Oh, we were under harsh conditions. But why were we in the harsh conditions? Where's the why come in? So those are my personal things and things I talk about, obviously publicly. But It's just, I don't know. Just this whole notion of just like the control of black thought and what I should agree with because of my skin tone is just offensive, and it degrades my intelligence, it degrades my soul and the uniqueness of my soul and the uniqueness of my contribution to reality. And I just don't get it. I don't get like what Martin Luther King did. I don't see how he advanced anything. I don't believe democracy is an advancement. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't believe American Constitution is an advancement. I don't believe re-understanding that is a goal. I believe that we're here to connect to the Creator and transform ourselves and function within the society that we live in. That's it. And the ultimate goal is to be in Israel, right? So that's how I understand reality. Like it's like everything outside of that is just like, well, what is it? What did Malcolm X do? Like, what did he point out? Like, what? Okay, I'm X. My family came from plantation. That's all external. What about the neshama? What about the soul? Anyways, so this is going a little rabbi. You got any response to that? Yeah, I know you're passionate about this. I'm attacking Black history. I know. I get it. Again. By the way, again.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's my take. So it's just like either we're in a reality where we need knowledge on how to correct the soul. Now, if we're saying that's a privileged understanding, okay, fine. But I would disagree with that, right? In anything that teaches us, whether it's from a Hispanic person, a Black person, a white person, an Indian person, a Jewish person, a Muslim person, whoever is speaking, we have to ask ourselves what they're saying, how does it connect to the creative purpose of reality, right? Because, according to the sages, right, is that the purpose of creation is for the human being to acknowledge its connection to the ultimate source, right? And thus doing this, it achieves a correction. So if I'm eating food and I'm in the frame of this original source, right? I'm in this frame of original source. If any form of pleasure or even any form of suffering, any form of difficulties, I understand this is part of the process of that. And by doing this, we do the full circle of creation. So I don't have a problem with any leaders, but I think us as Jews, as spiritual people, should critique their teachings and ask ourselves: is their methodology, their perception of reality, coming from the academic media system that says that the human being is not born with a soul, but rather the soul is acquired? The soul is acquired as a person achieves nobility, right? Because that's the Greek Roman understanding, right? And so, or is a person innately created with the soul is the person, and the body is just a garment, and then we're here in this world to ultimately correct that, right? That this soul came in this world because it needed certain refinements, and that came through these physical actions that were expressed through the body, right? So that's the classic Jewish approach, right? And so for us, we have halakha. So it's a battle of those two different realities. So if I'm holding by the reality that the soul is the reason why I'm created, in the experiences of the soul and why my soul is in this reality and not in the heavens, and the body's a garment, let's read Martin Luther King's speeches and see how does anything he's saying deal with that issue. Then we could switch it and say, well, if the human being doesn't have a soul, which academia and media profess, right? Since academia and media has existed in the West, they profess that they profess that they profess that the reality comes, from the virtue of the man, right? The virtue of the man, that his connection to the nation state, his ability to push these things out, right? So if we're coming from that perspective, then if I read Martin Luther King speeches, I think they will sound a lot different, right? And we could say that it's very profound, right? The equality, the justice, living up to the Constitution. I'm not concerned with the Constitution. I'm concerned with the Torah. I'm not concerned with what they live by. I'm concerned with what I live by and my family and my people live by, because I determine reality. I don't need them to be in conjunction with me. They're only a byproduct. They're the klipot. Okay, as I change, they disappear. That's what the Torah says. But anyways, so that's the point. I want to read just a little bit of Rabbi Sachs, but it's just a battle of reality. It just so happens we're talking about it from the black perspective. If we were like, say Wyatt or something like this, we was thinking about the same thing from the same perspective, right? The whole concept of whiteness, the whole concept of academia, same thing. I'm making the same argument. It's the same argument. It just so happens that because we're African Americans, very sensitive, because this is all we've had. So are we able to let it go and say, I'm going to completely accept the Torah and the 613 mitzvahs as my only reality? Black reality is meaningless. It's meaningless. White reality is meaningless, right? Asian reality is whatever term, right? It's meaningless. There's nothing for the neshama. It was never created for that. All right. So here's some thoughts on Shavuot. We're back in Shavuot because we're receiving Torah, and I have to challenge everything as a rabbi during this time. I got to challenge everything because we got to remove any limitations, any perceptions other than the Torah, because that's how we receive it on the 6th of Sivan. When we're at night and we're going to be learning with our friends and our family, and we're going to be reading this and talking about Torah and this, whatever. That night, we're going to have such a clarity, especially if we stay up all night. I'm not saying you have to, but God willing, I'll be able to. And so the point is just saying so right now we got to challenge everything. I can utilize blackness on a physical level to achieve objectives based off of the constructs of society, right? I can do that, right? But at the same time, it's not reality. It's a human construct. All right, so this is my perspective. Hey, I'm turned. Anyways, okay, so Shavuot says, okay, so these are Rabbi Sachs's thoughts on Shavuot. The Torah is our greatest gift. On the face of it, Shavuot is a brief festival with few distinctive practices, and at least as far as we're concerned, has no. Wait. Did we already read this? We read this yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, we read that yesterday.
Yeah,
We,
yeah, we
we,
read that
we're
right
past
here.
the part where it says reflect.
Exactly. Beautiful. Hey, and I appreciate you guys being strong enough to go with this, because it's a very difficult things for humans. I'm saying in general, all of us, is to like disassociate with familiarity, right? And all I'm saying is like, yeah, every concept exists in the world, and there's billions of people that function on it. But I'm saying in the frame of Abraham and Sarah, in the frame of the Jewish people, that there's a separation. Like, just because the world believes it and we could participate in it, doesn't mean that we have to believe it. And that's what I'm saying about whether, if I was talking to a group of white people or black people or whoever in the West, I would say, well, these constructs that we've been given, it's like, why? Like, I get it, like, but they made those celebrities. We didn't make those celebrities. Like, our ancestors that were there during those times, we don't even know what they were thinking. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just, anyways. All right. So Shavuot during our time, right? On Mount Sinai, the Israelites made a covenant with God that He would be their God and they would be His people. But the key moments in Tanakh, we find another phrase altogether. Okay. So he says in Devarim, Moshe says in the book of Devarim, he says, you shall know that the Lord is your God, the faithful God who keeps Habarit Vehesed, the covenant of love and kindness. Did we read this too or no? I feel like we did. Anyways, so he says, when Shlomo Melech, king, when Shlomo Melech dedicates the base of Mikdash, he utters the following prayer: there is no one like you, God, in the heavens above or the earth below. He says, Shomer Berid Vechesed. He says, keeping the covenant of love and kindness. He says, likewise, Nehemiah, when he renewed his covenant with the people, comes from Babylon. Says the great, mighty, awesome God, the Shomer Habrid of the Hesed, he who loves the covenant and the loving God. That's a really puzzling phrase, Shomer Habrid. No, maybe I just read about myself. So he says, it's so much Torah you don't know. All right, so he says, there is a puzzling phrase, Shomer. So Shomer means guard, Brit means covenant, the means kindness, right? He says the covenant and the love and kindness. He says, look he said the phrase itself is puzzling. Look for instance at the Publication Society's translation, which translate it just as covenant, because Hesed is included in the covenant. If you look at the internal version, which is a very good non-Jewish translation, Berit Hesed translate as the covenant of love. But of course, it does not mean that it means covenant of love. Everyone had a problem in understanding what God does for the Jewish people, other than making a covenant with them on Shavuot at the Har Sinai. But if you think of it, the answer is really quite simple. A covenant is what sociologists and anthropologists call receptacle and altruism. He says, and do this for me, and I will do it for you. He says, you serve me, says God, and I will protect you. The covenant is always reciprocal and neutral, and but that is terribly vulnerable, because what happens if we don't keep the covenant, and the covenant is then rendered annulled and void? The covenant is not enough. And that is what Moshe is saying. That it is, Shlomo Melech was saying, that is what Nehemiah was saying. God does not just make a covenant with us, he has a relationship of Hesed with us in an unconditional love that is translated into deeds of kindness to us. The covenant is conditional, but the Hesed is unconditional. That's interesting. He says, maybe ultimately this is why we read the book of Ruth on Shavuot. The book of Ruth is a book of Hesed. We receive a covenant on Mount Sinai, but we also receive something much more long lasting and profound, which is God's unconditional love. And that's what the book is telling us, that God has love for us the way Ruth had love for Naomi, and the way Boaz has love for Ruth. Acts as loving kindness all defined our relationship with God. And as the book of Ruth shows, they should be what defines our relationship with one another. So he's bringing these elements. We see it. The message resonates for us this year, just as the Megillah Ruth tragedy and loneliness and isolations are healed by the acts of love and kindness. So has the isolation of so many of us been healed by the acts of love and kindness, acts of neighborousness, people in touch, helping us, getting things for us, phoning us up, contacting us by Zoom. Oh wow! And he says, showing that they care about us. Those acts of kindness are humanized and enlightened the world. Hesed is a redemptive qualification, a quality, sorry, a redemptive quality, and transforms tragedy into form of celebration and despair into a powerful form of hope. Let what Ruth did for Naomi and what Boaz did for Ruth be with us as we try to reconnect with family and friends and those who have been so terribly isolated during difficult times. He says, and we may remember that, as well as giving us a covenant of Har Sinai, God gave us a bond of love that is unbreakable. He will never abandon us, and let us never abandon him. So so he has a reflection point. Why are the laws not enough? Why do we why do we need to also remember to be kind? And how will you show hesed to someone today? You guys got some answers to that to connect with Rabbi Sachs.
Yeah, you want to say? Oh, yeah. I think when we talk about just the level of being kind to each other, I think that the whole Torah, when we deal with human relations, the laws that deal with the respect and dealing with how we deal with the community and deal with the community abroad, I think that expresses that level of kindness. But um, it's kind of like the Torah. It's like the Torah law is like a
Mm,
headline, and the halakha, the Talmud, the Mishnah, they're the article. It's the article, and it gives you more definition on great ways to actually implement that law.
mm. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's this dynamic. I think of this aspect of, like you're saying, like, being aware of what the law is, but also having this frame of kindness, right? Which is like for example, like I'm saying, like really like intense concepts, right? Which is like really challenging Black history and how we understand it and these things. And but at the same time, I understand that it's a big shift, right? And it may not even be needed. But what I'm saying is, when we were in Egypt and we had a lot of Egyptian ideas and a lot of perspectives about who we were and how life should function, these were the elements that we removed before going on Mount Sinai, right? And so what I'm saying is that my ancestry was on Mount Sinai, right? And so I get it that I was in diaspora and things were presented to me, but that's not the beginning of my history. My history started thousands of years ago, right? In terms of the nationhood, right? That my descendants were lost from, that I reacclimated myself back to, right? And I believe that full heartedly. And I think it makes perfect sense, right? I think I have enough points to believe that being a truth, but the point is the same. But in order for me to get there, I got to connect to them completely. And it doesn't mean that I'm disregarding, the accomplishments of my ancestry in North America, right? And their endurance to be able to get to A to Z for me to have critical thinking, right? So it's not that, but at the same time, they would want me, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but they would want me to take what they had and push it aside and say, like, no, this is the way how we have to see reality. And it's not my personal opinion. This is the Masura that existed from the time of my ancestors. Black history was not a part of my ancestors in Babylon or in Greece or in Rome or in North, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that, we assumed as we fell further away. And it's not just the African Americans, it's also the person who says he's Sephardic and this and all these denominations and reform and conservative reconstruction. They're all holding by this. So it's not like a black, I'm just speaking because I'm African American, but everyone has to decolonize. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody got to decolonize and understand what that means specifically for them. Anyways, we'll stop here. Baruch atah Adonai, le'olam amen ve'amen. So we'll continue tomorrow. Continue